We have all the latest NHL trade talk around some big names like Carey Price. Will he want to stick around through a Habs rebuild? We also have the latest on Jake Debrusk and Evander Kane and some potential trades that may be happening in the near future. We also have word that the Montreal Canadiens have claimed a young defenseman on NHL waivers, and we have some more injuries and other notes as well. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and rumors to talk about here today on Saturday, December the 4th. The Montreal Canadiens have made a waiver claim. They've claimed young defenseman Kale Clague off waivers from the Los Angeles Kings. Now, yesterday we talked about the fact that Clague was placed on waivers right after the Kings had reclaimed Christian Wolanin, who was on waivers from the Buffalo Sabres. Of course, he was with the Kings earlier. He was traded there late last season. And I was a little bit surprised by this. Of course, they reclaimed Wolanin, who they didn't really give a ton of opportunity to, and because of that, had to risk losing Clague, who's been with the organization for 5 years now, who was a 2016 second-round pick. He's 23 years old, 6 feet tall, around 175 to 180 pounds. He's played in 33 NHL games, and to me, I thought he was a bright, up-and-coming defenseman who probably as early as sometime this year would finally grab a full-time regular spot. He's put up 11 points in those 33 games, but that was not meant to be. Now, the Kings do have a pretty deep and talented prospect pool, so unfortunately, I don't really think they're going to miss him too much, but this is Montreal's gain and LA's loss. Based on how things have gone with Wolanin between his time in LA, briefly in Buffalo, and even before that in Ottawa, I'm not convinced at this point that he's going to get it figured out to become a regular NHL defenseman. I mean, I hope he proves me wrong, because he certainly has some good qualities. Of course, he would be a second-generation NHL player as well. His father was a long-time D-man in the NHL, so we'll see how things work out, but this is certainly going to be a potential nice pickup for Montreal, who appears to be heading down towards a rebuild. We don't really know the full plans of Jeff Gorton, but based on his remarks and Jeff Molson prior to that earlier in the week, it does sound like there's a pretty decent possibility here that they may go down that road, and adding some more young talent will certainly help with that. I mean, Montreal's lost a few young defensemen here recently in the past year. They lost Victor Mete and Noah Juleson, both on waivers. Now, I'm not going to claim that Kale Clague's exact kind of duplicate of those defensemen. They're a little bit of a different style, but still, it gets them another young, up-and-coming body who can play some minutes, especially where the Habs are a little bit depleted right now as well with some injuries. So, certainly going to help out, and hopefully he'll get more of an opportunity. He's a pretty steady, solid two-way guy. I had a chance to play for Team Canada in the World Juniors a few years back, and I think he's got real potential. So to me, a nice grab there by the Montreal Canadiens. Staying with LA, not only do they lose Clague on waivers, but they also lose forward and center iceman Blake Lizotte to COVID protocol. So he's going to be out of the lineup here as well. So the Kings are down a few players, so I would imagine they're going to have to do at least one, maybe two recalls to fill the roster spots there. Now, we almost had a pretty serious looking injury last night. I'm sure that Ranger fans were kind of holding their breath and gasping a little bit. I know I was watching the game live while the New York Rangers were playing, and Igor Shesterkin ended up going down injured, and it did not look good at all. It looked like a scary situation. Now, originally, when Shesterkin first went down, it almost looked like I thought at first there might have been contact with him, but there really wasn't. After watching the replay and everything, there was absolutely no contact. It's just the way he went down in that right leg of his. I'm not sure if it's a knee or if it's more of a groin. It didn't really clarify, but we did hear from Gerard Gallant after the game, head coach, saying that it wasn't as bad as it looked as what the reports he was getting from the training staff. But when Igor went off the ice, he was not putting hardly any weight on that right leg, and it did not look good. So hard to say, but they're calling it week to week right now. Thankfully for them, this injury happened early in the third period. Alex Georgiev came in and held down the fort and played very well. Igor and Georgiev ended up sharing a shutout last night, which is not something you see very often. Two goalies sharing in the same shutout. So certainly the Rangers have been rolling and are looking really good. Georgiev has wanted more playing time, and we had heard that he had even asked for a trade dating back even to last year. So clearly, given the current situation, you can safely bet that a Georgiev trade won't be happening for at least a little while. I'm not sure who they're calling up to replace him as of yet. I believe Keith Kincaid, who's got lots of experience, wasn't available. I think he might be in COVID protocol. I'm not sure. I know the AHL has been hit hard with COVID cases too. We'll have to see where this goes, but it could have an impact if Georgiev can play how he did last night. I know it was only one period and not even a full period, but if he can keep that up, the Rangers will be just fine. But if he can't figure it out and ends up being inconsistent like he has been, it could be problematic, but thankfully it doesn't sound like he'll be out for too long. Now, Subban has been at it yet again. The Devils were playing the Jets last night, and PK, we're going to start calling him PK Slewban. We might as well, because he's become king of the Slewfoot. He's at it yet again, and as of right now, there seems to be nothing from player safety, which, this one didn't look, it wasn't as bad. It didn't seem to result in an injury, but he did a Slewfoot against Nick Ehlers of the Jets last night. And I don't know what it is. He just seems to form this habit when he's going in against his opponent that he gets that leg up to kind of push them out from underneath them. And it's a really bad habit. It's dangerous. And it needs to be snubbed here. Player safety needs to look at this and be like, you know what? This might not have been like a real bad one. It might not have been a situation where an injury occurred or anything of that nature, but it's the habit that needs to stop. He's had injuries on other players, and it's a matter of time before it keeps happening. But that's like the 5th time this season already, and we're only a quarter of the way through that Slewban has had the Slewfoot out again. So to me, it needs to stop. They need to step in and do something. I'm surprised his coaching staff doesn't talk to him about this more either, or wonder if they are, because it's putting the team in a bad predicament, and he's going to end up hurting somebody even more so than what happened to Ehlers last night, because some of the other ones earlier in the year weren't so fortunate. So to me, I'm calling on player safety to have a look at this guy, and a suspension is in order here, not because of any one circumstance, but because of the amount of them in the short period of time. It just seems to be something he wants to do all the time now. And you know what? If you're getting away with it, I guess, why would you stop, right? So we'll see where that goes. A quick update on Jack Eichel. Eichel has been skating longer than we thought, actually, and he might be back sooner than expected. Now, the recovery time was 3 to 5 months, and now there are reports out saying that it's possible. We can't say for sure, but he is about to be rejoining the Golden Knights here in the not too distant future. Now, of course, he's not going to play, but it just means that he's able to go to their practices as a non-contact participant. So that's going to be happening here in the near future. I don't know the exact date that he's going to be doing that, but he's already been skating on his own here for some time. So now he's almost ready to join them, and it could be closer to the 3 months that he's actually ready to go here. The reports are saying that he's feeling really good so far. Everything is going great. Some are saying that he's going to be a much better player than before because of this corrective procedure that's obviously has him pain-free and, feeling good. So we'll see where this goes. We know that Tyler Johnson also already had this surgery, or is about to have. I don't think he's had it yet, but he will be, and will be out 3 months. So it's good news. If this is going to be a surgery that's going to help these players with this type of injury and get them back feeling great faster than ever, then it's good on Eichel for being the trailblazer to get this rolling. Now, on to today's trade rumor section of the video. First up, I want to talk about Evander Kane. Now, of course, this might be a really difficult trade to pull off, and I'm going to say, based on what we've talked about here recently, that I still feel the odds of it getting done are slimmer than a lot of these other players. But Evander Kane clearly is in a situation where the Sharks don't want anything to do with him. They put him through waivers. He's likely going to stay in the minors until a trade can be facilitated. So to me, it's something that the Sharks are going to continue to be actively working on. There's no doubt about that. But for right now, many believe that it's going to have to be a 3-team trade most likely to get this to go through and have a chance to happen. Now, Emily Kaplan of ESPN was talking about that just recently. And one team that's been mentioned as a potential landing spot for Kane would be Carolina. Now, Carolina's a team to watch here. They're one of the top teams in the league. They've been sniffing around a lot of the other big names or any other strong players that have been on the market. They were even in the mix in the Eichel situation. They were one of the last 3 or 4 teams to be remaining in conversations. I don't know if they really were at the forefront at any point or that they were really like a leading contender, but the fact that they're still sniffing around the conversations, trying to see if they can figure it out, tells you that they still want to add another weapon. They're already a legit cup contender, in my opinion, and if they want to add another scoring weapon heading into the playoffs, this could be the guy. They gave Tony DeAngelo a chance. Tony DeAngelo was worn out his welcome with the Rangers organization. Of course, last year before they were let go, you've heard press conference from Jeff Gorton and John Davidson saying that DeAngelo was done with the organization. They wanted nothing to do with him anymore because of issues he had with his teammates. And of course, a lot of different things. There was a variety of things, really, issues with Tony. But Carolina's given him a chance, and so far that's worked out just fine. So that tells us that there's a lot of leadership in that room. The head coach, Rod Brindamore, is not going to be putting up with any shenanigans. He's one of the most well-respected coaches now in the league. He's tough but fair. And I think Kane might be able to thrive in that kind of situation. If there's a team out there that would give him a chance, maybe it will be the Carolina Hurricanes. But the only problem is they were able to get Tony on a 1-year contract as a free agent, whereas Kane has, a number of years left. But if they can get that salary down from 7 down to like even under $2 million, then it's possible, because you keep in mind he could be traded to a third party for 50% salary retention, which San Jose would hold back. That would knock it down to 3.5, and then that team can retain 50% of the remaining. So it could certainly be a significantly cheaper contract for teams. They can get Kane for under $3 million. Then obviously that's potentially worth it for them. So we'll see where it goes, but Carolina very well could be a landing spot for Kane, and the Coyotes seem to be one of the most logical teams that have been trying to act as an intermediary or like a broker, if you will, to facilitate these deals to gain extra assets as they head further into their rebuild. Now, when it comes to Bruins forward Jake Debrusk, I do expect this not to drag on for too long, mainly because it sounds like the Bruins really want to sign Tuukka Rask, and he's going to be ready to go here probably in the next few weeks, probably by January or early January. So I don't suspect that this Debrusk trade request is going to be drug on for too long. Now, we heard a variety of teams showing interest right off the hop, but a couple more that I want to talk about that weren't necessarily mentioned right away are New Jersey and Seattle. Now, the Seattle Kraken, I've seen some reports saying that they might be a good landing spot for Debrusk. Obviously, a new team trying to add new talent, and one player they have that might be of interest to the Bruins, which would be a cheaper contract, but possibly a player that would fit well would be Mason Appleton. Appleton had a breakout year in Winnipeg last year, got claimed in the expansion draft. He's a guy that can skate, provide some speed, and the offense certainly is capable based on what he did last year. It's obviously not quite to that point this year in Seattle, but given the right situation with the right line mates in Boston, he might be able to refine that and certainly contribute at a level that they expect from Debrusk. So no guarantees, but Seattle certainly could be a good spot. And another team not to rule out here that we've seen some NHL insiders talking about is the Devils. Now, the Devils and Tom Fitzgerald have been relatively aggressive with getting some of their young stars signed. We saw the big Jack Hughes contract here recently. The Devils are a team that's certainly improved this year for sure. Hard to say if they're going to be in a playoff hunt. As of right now, they're not in a playoff spot. So the odds of it happening are probably less than the missing, but still, they're in the hunt. They're not that far out of the picture. They could be, and even if they are, Debrusk is a player that even if they're going to the playoffs or not going to the playoffs, makes sense for them to consider for the future. He's only 25 years old. He would fit well with their young core that they're building around, and maybe a player that they have that would be interest to Boston would be one of their hometown players in Miles Wood. Wood's a player that's had some injury issues here in the past few years, but at the same time, could very well be very interested in going home as well. So Wood or Appleton for Debrusk to me may not be a one-for-one deal, but those might be the main pieces on those rosters coming back that would be of interest to Boston. And those teams, I think, would have a lot of reason to be interested in Debrusk in the long haul as well. So we'll see where that goes, but there's no shortage of interest. And like I said, they need the space to sign Rask. So I don't think that's going to be something that we see drag on for too long. If it doesn't happen by the holiday freeze, I would expect it to happen early in January, if not, maybe sooner. I want to talk about Carey Price and the possibility of the Habs trading him. It's been brought up by Pierre LeBrun recently on Insider Trading, and as well as an athletic article that he's written, talking about the likelihood of the Habs going down a rebuild, which seems more and more likely here all the time. As the losing continues and the new regime gets started, it seems like a rebuild, or at least even if you don't want to call it that, some sort of a reset, which could involve moving out several veterans, could very well be happening in the very near future, and that's going to start before the deadline this year. And there's a lot of question and debate whether or not a 34-year-old Carey Price would want to stick around to go through that, given where he's at in his career. Of course, a big problem that is posed with that is his contract. He makes over $10 million and still has a number of years left. So it's certainly, a deterrent for many teams, even though they'd love to have his services. Now, would Montreal consider retaining some salary? I would say maybe, but I don't think they would want to retain a whole heck of a lot, because as they go through this rebuild in the next few years, they're going to want some money available to be able to add other younger assets that meet the needs and what they're going to be looking to build going forward. But obviously, a couple of teams that come right to mind when it comes to potential Carey Price trades would be the Avalanche as well as the Kraken. Now, of course, this was brought up by Pierre LeBrun on the anniversary of Patrick Roy playing his last game in Montreal and getting traded to the Avalanche. So I'm not sure if that's strictly coincidence or if they're just trying to rile up the history here. Obviously, the Habs have gone through this with Roy in the past, and there's a whole different scenario now. I mean, we don't have a scenario where Price is demanding to be traded, and not the same scenario at all, but still trading a franchise, future Hall of Fame goaltender is not something the teams typically get to do, once, let alone twice within, that kind of stretch of time. But at the same time here, like I said, Price is, I wonder where his heart is, to be completely honest. This is just strictly my opinion. I don't have anything to back this up, but I honestly, seriously wonder, the whole expansion draft in Seattle and waiving to protect Jake Allen and everything last summer, I wonder if in his heart he knew that it was time to move on. And maybe he wanted to go to Seattle. Like I said before, his wife is from there. That's where he played his junior hockey, was in that state. That's where he met his future wife, Angela, who they're now married with children, have a great family. And it's kind of a homecoming. It's close to home for him in BC. It's close to home for her in the state of Seattle, Washington. So, clearly, it would make a lot of sense why he would want to go there. Now, they signed Philip Grubauer, of course, to a free agent contract. Right now, the Kraken goalies haven't really worked out for the best. So, clearly, they would be a situation where they'd likely have to move Grubauer if they were taking on Price. And it would likely have to find a way to have some salary retained either by Montreal or a third party if that were going to happen. Of course, the other team here is the Avalanche. But look at the situation in Colorado. It's kind of funny how it mirrors the very similar story of what was going on before when Patrick Roy was traded. That team was very strong, but obviously they needed an upgrade in goal to put them over the top to make them the true legit contenders. They had Sakic and Forsberg and Adam Foote and all these guys that were helping them become Stanley Cup champions. But Patrick Roy was a huge piece to that as well. So certainly the Avalanche right now, of course, they lost Grubauer to Seattle, who was a piece of them winning last year. And now Darcy Kuemper hasn't been quite getting that job done. It's fair to say that if there's a weakness, it's certainly between the pipes right now. Not to say that Darcy Kuemper can't get it turned around, but they have so much talent up front. They have a pretty solid blue line. And can you imagine if they had Carey Price between the pipes? It's just a really eerily similar situation of history, maybe repeating itself here, but it is a legit question that LeBrun raises. Would Price want to stick around? And to me, those are the two main teams that would make sense. And obviously, like I said, Montreal, you'd have to have salary retained, whether it be the Habs or a third party, there's no doubt. But Montreal could get a good return to help the rebuild and move on from him, and he can go chase a cup with them. But it would be kind of weird and kind of eerily similar to the past. But to me, it makes a lot of sense. But obviously, Price is going to have some say over where he goes as well because of the contract. But let me know what your thoughts are. If Montreal goes down the route of a rebuild, is Pierre LeBrun on to something here that Carey Price likely is going to want to move on, and the Habs might have to find another way to move their all-star goaltender like they did with Patrick Roy all those years ago? Different scenario, same outcome. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.